Hello and welcome to our special announcement. Today I am joined by two of my colleagues, James Case and Joshua Birdsong, and they have something rather impossible to talk about, or so I'm told.
Yes, hi everyone. I'm James Case. I am lead developer on the Rules and Lore team, and with me is.
Hi, I'm Joshua Birdsong. I'm a designer on the Rules and Lore team.
Yeah. So, Josh, what are we here to talk about today?
Oh, well, we're here to talk about some awesome, brand new, fun playtest classes for you all to delve into and
Yes.
play around with.
Yes, we are happy to announce that we'll be playtesting two new classes going forward, both of which play with magic in some fun and interesting ways. So, coming hot off the heels of our Battlecry playtest, where we had the Commander and the Guardian, now we're going a bit more into the mystical. So, Josh, I think you have the first class we're here to talk about.
I do, and I'm very excited about this. The first class that we are going to be playtesting is the Necromancer. This is a very exciting project for us. Now that Necromancy is not a part of the Wizard class, we are now able to delve fully into it as its own unique premise. Yeah. And it has some very fun interactions that it can do that really pulls it apart from a traditional wizard that you would see in the past. The first thing that we decided to change was we made this and prepared a cult caster that can that has a dirge within their body and their soul that conjures forth their spells that they can pull up each day to cast their occult magic.
I really like the use of occult here because if we look at kind of our spell classes, we have our spell traditions. You know, Arcane has like a lot of different stuff in it, but if you look at what allows you to kind of commune with spirits and affect the soul directly and kind of do a lot of spooky things, like that's definitely the occult tradition.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
As someone who doesn't work on the design team, but it's my whole job to be excited about things that y'all do, when I learned about this particular class, I was so excited that I had to like control myself.
You don't have to,
but I love all things spooky, so she's for me.
Absolutely. But what would a necromancer be without undead for them to use and to control and to, you know, bring them to their untimely ends to suit you better? Necromancers will be having a new mechanic called Thralls, what you will be able to summon throughout the battlefield and then use to perform necromantic abilities, such as consuming a thrall whenever you might need an extra focus point to cast another bit of necromantic magic.
Oh.
Yes.
It's very exciting.
What's the point of summoning undead if you can't eat them later for extra power?
One of the things I do like about these thralls is that they do come in a bunch of different sort of flavors. Well, now I feel weird saying that, but I know that
go with it.
Some necromancers are a little more focused on skeletons and some are a little more focused on spirits, and kind of depending on how you choose to focus, your thralls may get a little bit extra abilities.
Absolutely.
I think the spirit ones get, I think, the ability to deal some void damage or spirit damage or something like that.
Let me just double check that. These went through a bit of development. Yeah. They are able to move through them, and whenever they would deal damage, you can have that damage become void damage instead of the physical damage it would do, spirit or void.
So I like your way to kind of choose the kind of specific type of thrall your necromancy is focused in.
Absolutely. But not all thralls are for eating. You know, they got to do other things too. And one thing that thralls are really good at doing is blowing up.
Now I will switch to this slide. So sorry.
It's perfect. Yes, thralls will have lots of different uses with your focus spells and with your abilities you can get through feats. One of the earliest ones you can get is the necromantic bomb, which allows you to blow up a thrall in a big explosion of necromantic energy.
I think one of my first Pathfinder 2 characters was a witch who definitely got a lot of use out of the Final Sacrifice spell that lets you blow up your familiar. So the idea of what if Final Sacrifice, but a lot.
Yep.
And when I did it, instead of, I know this is Necrotic Bomb and you can you know, you can blow up your thrall to deal more damage,
Yeah.
but like, what are some other things that, you know, your grave spells, your focus spells can do with your thralls?
Well, a common theme with our grave spells is that they're mostly going to be sacrificing thralls for really cool effects. Thralls are there. They're not there to last a very long time. They're temporary beings. They exist to serve you to the very end, and that end is going to come sooner rather than later. But lots of grave spells have lots of cool effects, from absorbing them into turning them into armor, into weapons, or even blowing them up, or detonating them in a shrapnel of bones. Lots of different opportunities to sacrifice your thralls in very fun and exciting ways.
I think one of the first ones I saw was called Dead Weight, where you command one of your thralls to leap onto an enemy, and it just kind of like grabs onto them and starts slowing them down.
Yes.
Which is, you know, which is a great way to kind of, you know, if you don't need to do damage, you might need to do some debuffs or some control.
Absolutely.
And I think that the Necromancer definitely is going to play to the style of, you want to just sit in the back being like, go my puppets.
Very, very much true. So they're gonna be able to act on multiple areas of the battlefield at once because of these thralls, and it's going to give them a lot of ways to feel like you're controlling the battlefield with your various undead forces. I think it's gonna be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
I'm really excited about a crowd control caster.
Yeah.
Like, in terms, like, I have never played one at a tabletop table, but like those tend to be the characters that I enjoy playing in like RPGs, and so I'm very excited to have a crowd control caster who's also very spooky.
I love the flavor of the dirge, as opposed to like, instead of kind of like a spell book or a repertoire, they kind of have this like, you know, they have this very like spookily coded way of keeping track of their spells.
I really did want to tie this into occult magic, and occult magic isn't like I'm studying and writing in a book. Occult magic is the magic of like storytelling and emotion and feeling, and I feel like the dirge really encapsulates the occult aspects of necromancy better than a spell book would.
Yeah, for sure. I really like it. So that is very much a full prepared occult spellcaster. And so for our second magic class, we have something very different. The second class we will be playtesting is the Runesmith. So these are both very magically focused classes, but the Runesmith is not a caster. They are something of a support martial, the ability to engrave or etch runes onto themselves, onto their weapons or their allies' weapons, or even directly onto enemies. So they can throughout the battle, they will be sort of tracing these runes onto enemies as they can, and before the battle, they'll be trying to put the right rune onto their allies or themselves. And these runes have benefits as long as they're present, but then you can also invoke them to have additional effects. I think we have an example of a rune here. So we went with an occult rune here just to stay a little bit on theme, but this is Olginex, the rune of Coward's Bane. So this is drawn on a shield, and while the shield is raised, it grants the bearer an extra bonus against ranged attacks. The idea is that, you know, they should be getting in to fight you directly.
Yeah, cowards, only cowards shoot arrows.
Yeah. And so if you engrave this on your allies' shields, they'll get this bonus. But of course, we don't want all of your decisions to be made kind of in the beginning of the day before combat. Runesmiths have the ability to pronounce the true name of their runes to invoke them. And when they invoke their runes, they can choose to invoke many of their runes at one time. So you might look at you know, having an ally with this rune that might increase their defense and this rune that might do something, and you might have drawn a damaging rune on an opponent, and then when the moment is right, you can pronounce these true names to kind of cause a lot of effects at once. This here plays into that theme of like making enemies be very bad from a distance. It creates the illusion of a wall that makes it hard for enemies to move away from you. So that's a thing you might want to, you might put it on yourself, but you might also put it on, say, your guardian or your champion or something like that.
I like that both of these classes have a way to explode things like out of nowhere, because again, from like a battlefield concept, like having that instantaneous, not necessarily gameplay wise, but like in terms of the beats of battle, ability to change the tides is really cool.
Yeah, we went with kind of an idea of setup and payoff in sort of two different ways here with these classes. And I think where the Necromancer may be kind of creating a bunch of minions and expending them, the Runesmith is trying to balance some of their prepared abilities versus some of their in the moment ones. So this is just one of a large number of runes that we're testing. The Runesmith kind of goes from the idea of the rune being at the source of all magic. And so this is an occult rune, but there are runes of all the traditions. You might see some runes that are specifically dwarven runes or draconic runes. And those are things that I think it's really fun to sort of build out the setting with. Our creative director, Luis Loza, went through and kind of named all of the runes according to kind of what he thought made sense in the world. And I think some of the more lore aware of our players might see some differences in kind of what the name of the runes are versus what their effects are.
What I really like about the runes is that they play with a different dynamic of space than most other effects, because when you're choosing an ability, you're not choosing like where it goes, you're choosing like what kind of item or what kind of creature you're attaching it to, and those can dynamically shift later to when you actually choose to invoke the rune. Like if you put it on an ally, you're casting it, like you're not casting it, you're putting a rune on someone right next to you, but then next round when you invoke it, that character might have charged all the way out to the middle of the battlefield before you explode it.
And this is also a character that plays with a lot of the tech that we really have for our martial characters. So now they won't just be sitting there and kind of tracing runes, in the air to apply them. Although you can do that. You can also do some other stuff that kind of plays with your weapons a bit more. Yeah, you can bonk people, or I think we have another feat here, which is remote detonation. So this allows you to invoke your rune at kind of a greater range with one of your attacks. Essentially, you can whisper invocation over an arrow or a sling bullet or something and fire it at an enemy. And if it hits them, it'll detonate all the runes that's on that enemy. So this is also one of those things where, sure, you could sit in the back at maybe kind of a shorter range and yell the rune at the enemy to invoke the effects, or you could shoot them with an arrow that then cause it to explode in a shower of various effects. And so you'll see these kind of like these tricks that we give to martial characters a lot, where they can kind of combine abilities together, but in a way that specifically speaks to the Runesmith. I think they have another ability where they can trace a rune onto the end of their hammer and they can hit an enemy with it. And if it hits, they like leave the rune branded on the enemy. So you'll see a lot of those, and at higher level, you'll also see some effects that, if you have two specific runes of certain types on the enemy at the same time and you invoke them together, it may have a different effect. So you're going to look at kind of putting these runes together into to make these sort of larger effects as you become more powerful.
You mentioned that they come in all of the magical traditions. Is that something, and you can tell me that's too much to ask if it's too much, is that something you could mix and match? Like, could you be someone who uses occult and primal runes, or is it more of the way that casters do, where they tend to follow one or two of those?
No, you'll have all of them in your set, and some of the larger invocations, in fact, require you to have two different runes of two different traditions on them at the same time. I think there's a feat called, let me try and pull it up because I have to remember exactly what it did here. And these tend to operate out of the kind of idea of the traditions of magic and what do they mean. So there's a feat called Astral Composite Invocation. And so this has to do with the two traditions of magic that affect the spirit, which are, divine and occult, or sorry, arcane and occult. And so if you do them on the same enemy at the same time, it affects their spirit. And in addition to whatever other effects, it might make them stupefied or do some other stuff. So very much mixing and matching, not only the effect of the runes, but like how you might want them to fit together for the biggest. The idea here is maybe you can always just place a rune and then immediately invoke it if you really need that effect now, but you might want to kind of play a little bit of a longer game with them if you can.
This seems like the kind of class that will really reward players who think tactically and can think a turn or two in advance of what they, and then plan out some really, really awesome turns.
We're interested to see what kind of combos, both of kind of the thralls and the runes, and how people really use them in play.
Absolutely.
I'm very excited for very complex chess matches with my players once they get a hold of these.
If you want to just put the Rune of Thunder on your hammer and hit somebody with it and strike them with lightning, you can do that. That's a thing you can do.
Absolutely.
And I have players who will do that, and I have players who will be like, that rune I wrote 4 turns ago? It's here now. And I'll be like, oh, I didn't remember that. Yep. But yeah, so these are the 2 classes that we're showing off. When can folks expect to be able to get these files in their hands and start sort of diving into these classes?
Yeah, so our playtest will be launching December 9th, and it'll be running until January 31st. And you can find these at all of the normal places. We have Pathfinder Playtest. We'll have it up, and we will be looking for your feedback at our surveys on Paizo.com and with some of our partners like Demiplane. But we also know it's 2 days before PAX. So if you will be at PAX, we will actually have the physical copies of them there. And you can see them while you're at the show a couple days before they come out on Monday.
Yes.
So yeah.
And I have been told by Alex that you can bring a Runesmith or a Necromancer to your org play table to demo them at PAX. So
be ready to make a character very quickly.
Go grab that piece of paper and then just go sit down for 20 minutes and fill out that character sheet.
Well, we should, while we hope that these are classes that have a lot of tactical opportunities at the table, we do, I think when you're making a Necromancer, you're making a Runesmith, you're picking your spells, you're picking your focus spell. If you're a Runesmith, you're picking a couple of runes. We really hope that a lot of this comes from, how you choose to use these tools in combat. But of course, this is a playtest, and, we always try to swing a little wide on the playtest just to give a lot of stuff out there. So please give us feedback. Let us know what you think. Did you accidentally find that you could break the zombie character limit and just put too many zombies in a room? If so, we really want to know that. With all of our playtests, we really look forward to collecting people's feedback, hearing about it, hearing what kind of cool characters you made, and also hearing where, maybe, that's too many runes. So let us know. It's all of that is information we can use to make the final classes the best they can be.
I have one question, and it's technically a question for both of you, but maybe more for James. Can I put runes on my thralls? Or rather, can someone else put runes on my thralls?
Let me just confirm something real quick. That's the one.
You can certainly. It might be hard to do it in a long-term sense, since the thralls don't stick around.
They don't stick around too much, but thralls, I just checked, are technically creatures, and you can apply runes to a creature.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if you want to put the short-term rune that's supposed to make a burst of fire, and you're supposed to put it on enemies, but I guess if you put it on a zombie and then the zombie runs at them, that is a use of the classes that I had not thought about until now. So congratulations. Rue, could you please put that in the feedback survey?
I will. I will specifically play one and have one of my table mates play the other, and we'll tell you how it goes.
Excellent.
This is the kind of feedback we're looking for in the playtest.
Just once more, for folks who may have missed it, the playtest begins officially on December 9th, and you'll find the files on pathfinderplaytest.com, as well as the link that is on the screen here. And for folks who happen to be at PAX December 6th through 8th, you can pick those physical files up and hop into an organized play table if you want to get those classes early. And is there anything else either of you would like to say before we say goodbye to the friendly people?
No. Play the playtest. Have fun. Let us know.